A very good night to one and all, especially the folks who are tuned in to this show, A Politically Incorrect Guyana. Just a clarification here. This show is normally hosted by Mr. Kian Jabour. Kian is unavailable in this moment, so he has asked for myself and for Asha to come as co-hosts slash moderators, and for us to continue the great conversations that we've been having here over the past couple of weeks. Uh, I just want to clarify again that the views expressed on the show are those of myself, Dr. Mark France, and I would let Asha clarify if her views are indeed that of her political party, which she's a part of. But because I am the chair of a political party, we operate under democratic principles in that any decision made on behalf of ANUG and any statement as such must have the full approval of the executive. So that's the clarification. Asha, good night to you. How are you doing?
Good night, Mark. I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me tonight as my co-colleague as we're having fun discussions tonight. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Wonderful. For those persons out there who may not be au fait with who Dr. Asha Kissoon is, Dr. Asha Kissoon is the leader of one of the newer political parties, the New Movement. This is one of the three parties that would have joined together in the joinder memorandum of understanding, and as such, TNM and Asha in particular is going to be the next occupant of the joiner's seat in the National Assembly. Asha, I just got some good news from you, right? You finally got a confirmation of the date of the next parliamentary sit-in. You want to share this news with Guyana?
Yes, the next sit-in is on the 24th of April, where I will officially be sworn in as a member of parliament representing the joiner. So this is good news for us. We were waiting for this date.
Thank you. It's been quite a wait,
Yes, it
and
has.
I know you probably would have been excited. I know you mentioned that you have already begun some of the groundwork with regard to being a parliamentarian. You've had some sessions with the clerk of the National Assembly. You want to share some light on that?
Sure. So for the persons out there, I promise you to let you have a step-by-step walk with me on this journey. So far, I've been given an orientation. Orientation is basically to let us know about the dress code, language to be used in Parliament, a copy of the Constitution of Guyana because we must be governed by the laws, as usual.
Okay.
You're given the laws and the regulations of how to conduct yourself in Parliament. And, as a young person coming up and getting in there, I'm really happy and excited to have the experience to make a difference.
Great. And for us as young politicians, up and coming politicians, I believe that it is key in how we comport ourselves as individuals, as leaders, and representatives of the people. And of course, we have seen incidents in previous sittings of Parliament whereby the conduct of many of the parliamentarians from both sides of the divide has been unbecoming of parliamentarians. And my hope is, Asha, that when you're there, you lead by example.
Yes, of course. It's quite displeasing when we see displays of member of parliaments leaving the sit-in before it finishes, interrupting other speakers. The main focus for us there, that's the highest office in Guyana in government. Our main focus would to be to debate issues, real issues that's going to affect hundreds of thousands of people, to put out ideas and motions that would affect their lives. So it's something very important, and our conduct as young people coming up, I'm hoping that I can be an example to show that we must do better in order to get better.
Thank you. I do believe that a lot more can be done from parliamentarians. Uh, I have watched many of the sessions for the last 3, 4 years because I've been paying attention to politics in Guyana. And I've seen the famous dildo comments. I've seen the other call outs that have happened across the floor. I've seen the whistle blowing. I've seen the getting up from the seat and marching around. We've all seen the mace incident. Clearly, these are not traits that we want to see coming from our parliamentarians, coming from Parliament on the whole, because we are exposing these kinds of conduct to the greater world. And everyone is watching in on Guyana. The fact that we are now the center of I would say, the Western Hemisphere with regard to the petroleum industry, ExxonMobil being a major player here with loud connections to the United States and the other first world countries. a lot of attention is being paid to Guyana. And of course, attention will be paid to those decisions made in Parliament and the conduct of those parliamentarians. And it starts, and it has to start somewhere. It starts with us, the individuals, right? We need to lead by example. My hope, Asha, is that whenever your term finishes in the seat, uh, a little young girl out there, a little young boy out there can look up and say, you know what? Dr. Kissoon did conduct herself in a manner of a parliamentarian, and I would one day want to be like Dr. Asha Kissoon. I want you to lay the groundwork there to plant the seed for those young persons who are looking up to you. And that is why I'm very glad, and I know that you will not disappoint us. And in the event that you do anything to disappoint us, of course, I'll be pulling you up as a friend and as a colleague.
Well, I'm saying to the public that I have incredible support from my colleagues in ANOG, TNM, and a few of the other newer parties. It has been overwhelming, and I don't want to let anybody down, more especially the citizens of Guyana, the persons who support us, who vote for us. The simple messages that you get, hi dear, congratulations, I know you're going to do well, they mean so much to me. And like Mark is saying, we already got into politics to make a difference, to show the Guyanese people that we are independent from government or opposition. We will defend them against anything that is wrong. We will stand up for them when they have issues that need to be highlighted. And even when it comes to conduct in Parliament, we will make a difference and show you how it should be done.
Thank you very much. You have a lot of us with expectations there, Asha, and of course you lead the way. Um, the the former member of Parliament, Mr. Lennox Schumann, his term would have finished. He occupied the seat of as a member of Parliament, and he was also the Deputy Speaker. Um, I know we've had a press conference and this issue was raised. I just want it to be clarified for the Guyanese public and for those watching from the wider world to know. Um, is Dr. Asha Kissoon willing to serve as a Deputy Speaker if given the support of Parliament, the majority of Parliament?
Yes, definitely. I said this before. I believe that the experience that will be gained cannot be compared to, and any opportunity we get to serve our constituency, we will take it. However, let me be clear, there is no lobbying, nobody has reached out to me. Myself and Mark, we have no idea how that vote would go, but we still keep a positive attitude.
The general trend is that the major opposition would normally have the post of deputy speaker. Is TNM and Dr. Kissoon in particular looking to nominate anyone from the main opposition party to put forward a nominee?
To be honest, no. I am still quite disappointed with what happened during our 2020 election. And until I see real improvement in somebody who steps forward in honesty, ethically, to represent their constituency, that's where my support would go. I'm still hearing rumors of magical SOPs appearing with the winning numbers, and it's quite disappointing. I mean, Mark, the election has come, it's gone. We had a national recount, we know who has won. So this is coming from a party who's still stuck in the SOP trend, and we don't want to put our support there right now. I do believe that we cannot judge an entire party or its members for a few persons who were involved in the negativity and the rigging. They are good persons in the party, they're good followers, but I think they need a little bit of reorganization, because if they let their young people come forward and start leading more, there's hope for them.
Great. I like that response. As a young woman, as a young leader, it is up to us as young leaders on the whole to try to get persons from the other parties, young persons especially, to take up that mantle. I I had a big issue during the elections of 2020. Not so much so with how the party went about their various stands with regard to election, but the proliferation of young leaders and colleagues of mine in these other parties. And for whatever reason, whatever may be their reason, their inability to show true leadership, for them to step out from the limelight, for them to come out and say that, you know what, this is not how things are supposed to be. We can do better as young politicians, as young leaders. And if it is that our elders, our leaders in the political parties are not adequately representing us or the constituents, why can't we as young people step out from behind the shadows and make our voices heard? I think that many of the young persons, and I'm calling out all of my colleagues in the medical fraternity because I know there were quite a few on the list of candidates for some of the parties. Um, why haven't you taken that opportunity to get out there, to be a leader, to create a following and be the voice of those who truly want your representation? Have you had any conversations with any of the younger political leaders in the other parties? I know that there has been some initial conversations with reaching out to some of the other smaller parties, trying to get their issues on the front burner for whenever Dr. Kissoon is in Parliament. Any of the members, the leaders from the major parties, the younger leaders, have you reached out to anyone?
To be honest, we have not had any official meetings as yet, but it is our intention as the new movement to meet with other political parties, have them express their views, let us know what it is they would like to see done, and as long as it's in line with our principles, that we'll try to do that. Remember, we want everybody to be represented, our constituents, our colleagues, our partners in the joiner. So it is our hope that we will meet soon. You know, the swearing in is happening on the 24th, so everybody should be expecting a letter, a call, a message, and we're going to start talks. In relation to the larger parties, off record, I have spoken to some young people from APNU AFC, very bright young people.
Mm-hmm.
I must tell you, their vision, they have good ideas, and I believe if they're given a chance to shine or step forward, they would be able to make a difference in their party. I have not spoken officially to any young persons from the People's Progressive Party Civic, but I do have friends and colleagues in work and who I interact with that they let me know that they're doing well, their youth groups and their activities. Just today, the Speaker of the National Assembly had his youth debate competition.
Okay.
And it was quite, you know, I felt so proud to see the young people stepping forward, debating national issues. So there's a lot going on. But I do intend to have conversations with everyone. At the end of the day, we must all work together for the betterment of Guyana.
Most certainly. As it is well known, I interact with each and every one, all of the parties out there. I can say that, for example, the chair of the PNC currently, Sherwin. Sherwin is a colleague of mine, one batch below me from high school. So we have a good rapport. I also have some conversations sometimes with Ganesh. Ganesh, I think, is the youngest parliamentarian. I don't know if you may eclipse him with that, but he is currently the youngest parliamentarian. So there are youthful leaders in the main opposition, and of course, I think the PPPC is one of the better run parties with regard to youth and youth leadership. Their youth arm is quite strong, and of course, we want to see those persons stepping up.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a young president, we have a young cabinet. Many of the ministers are young but experienced, and generally their performance on the job has been a lot of work, and they're working very hard, right? So we must give kudos to them.
You know, I'm happy that you mentioned Sherwin Holder,
Mhm.
the honorable member Sherwin Holder. Let me be
Your language, yes.
politically correct. He's a very bright young man, has really good vision for his party, and it's my hope that they would be able to give him a chance to shine. Let me put it that way, because we know the politics, the internal politics involved, and the ancient politics that plagues the two main parties that are in Guyana. I'm happy that you brought up youth and how they're functioning. You know, I still believe there's room for improvement because, as it is right now, most young people believe that they must be in one of the major political parties in order to be involved or invited to these activities for young people. But more needs to be done that is not political to give persons a chance to come forward who are not yet ready for politics, of course. we are trying to be an example to show them that young people can do it. There are ways to go about to learn, but there needs to be some independent activity. That's room for improvement.
Yes, the only way we can gain experience is by actually doing the groundwork, taking part in whatever it is, whether it is politics at your neighborhood level, whether it's a leadership position in your religious organization, right? It's time for us to step up. And that brings me to one of the important aspects of the current news out there. Very soon we will be having local government elections. Monday the 17th, I think it's
It's
the
nomination day.
nomination day. Uh, as was mentioned, TNM is focusing their energies on the issues that they're going to be representing the people in the seat. And as such, you guys are not taking part in the local government elections. As I would have mentioned at the press conference, and United Guyana is also not taking part, and we made mention of the reasons why. However, as independent candidate, I am taking part in my constituency where I'm from in Berbice. And as such, I have a meeting tomorrow with the returning officer there. But my call out to young people is, or young persons, is for us to use this opportunity to gain experience. I am from what you may call a traditionally PNC stronghold. The New Amsterdam area, the New Amsterdam catchment area, has predominantly voted for the PNC throughout history. And I am not under the impression that I'm going to take that seat away from whomever is the councillor. But for me, what is more important is how I go about my campaign, what I learn on the campaign, and how I can take this into 2025 going forward at the next general election. Because a new United Guyana will be there in 2025 as a force and a force to be reckoned with. And this is a promise to Guyana and all Guyanese. We will be there in 2025. We're hoping to be working with some of the other smaller parties. Hopefully, we can come together because we've seen that splitting the votes, and actually, this is something that is very important. We've seen how splitting the votes, having many voices singing almost the same song, can really be to the detriment of third parties. And given our history and what has happened because of the AFC and their inability to give their supporters what is it that they would have promised them and to deliver on their expectations. Third parties have been shot in the feet, and as such, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to regain the trust of the populace. But as with everything, time heals, time resolves, and with time, you see a reason or the reason for us to have a third force that can have the balance of power and stop the winner take all politics that has been happening since independence, right? And this is something that is very, very important. Unfortunately, when we had that chance in 2011, we didn't make the most of it. My hope when I voted in 2006 and 2011 was that for that third force to be the new force, for them to take over, and I am almost certain if they had maintained their independence, we would have had a tri-party state today where three parties would have none with
Oh,
the majority.
Mark, we don't even need to go back that far. 2020 elections. Had the third force or all the newer parties joined with us, like we were asking, there wouldn't be a majority in parliament right now as we sit here. Am I right?
Well, I think it's about two seats, so it's 12,000 votes somewhere around there,
And the largest remainder.
and the largest remainder. So maybe two, maybe three, yes. So indeed, we would have had a minority government and
Exactly.
be able to push through a lot of what we were
And
asking
that
for.
was at the peak, the beginning of a third force. Now, going forward, as long as we have persons who are willing to work, put in the groundwork, work together, this is accomplishable. We can do it.
It is, right? And the government is doing a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
They have huge sums of monies that they're spending. You don't praise the government for the work that they're doing when they have money to spend. You want them to spend those monies in an accountable and transparent manner. You want for the Guyanese people to be able to say, yes, I did get the buck for my dollar that was spent. My tax monies, the natural resource funds, we did get enough from those monies, and not for anything to be done in a hazy fashion, as has been the norm in the past, right? And this is where we have to be on the guard, because with the increased monies that are available, right? We see an ever larger and larger budget that is being presented, right? And because of this, the government is uh, has to fast track their developmental plans, and as such, the works that are being done may not always be up to the standards that are required. But it is for us, the Guyanese population, for us, the voters, to ensure that any work that is being done is done up to standard, and for us to highlight any work that is of substandard nature. I can remember it was a couple of weeks ago, I saw the VP um, saying that yes, we have monies to spend, we have roads to build, but we don't have enough qualified contractors. And as such, even though we may have contractors with issues, for example, there was the mention of the one in Letem who got I think it was a $700 million contract. Even though these persons should have been blacklisted or should have had issues, we don't have a choice but to give them the work so that the people can get their roads, right? I had an issue with that, because even though we have work to be done, right, we still need to ensure that it's done in the proper manner. We still need to ensure that the various commissions that govern how these contracts are given out is functioning properly, right? So NPTAB must be doing its work. The Procurement Commission must be doing its work. And because of the manner in which these organizations, these commissions are set up, right? They don't really answer to the Guyanese people, and a lot of the procedure and the protocols of how things must be done, sometimes these are bypassed, right? And that is why, with a majority vote in Parliament, so much can be accomplished without getting that two-third majority to make the big constitutional changes that we normally clamor for, right? We can make specific changes in these boards, in these commissions, just by having a simple majority. And this is something that the Guyanese population has to be aware of. If you can have a minority government, you can be able to say that, and this is Anu's formula, the board should have two and two and one. Two from the governing party, two from the major opposition, and one from the third force, right? That way, every contract that goes, every decision that is made is scrutinized by all three sides, and if any issue is raised, it will be highlighted, right? And that brings about transparency, and that is what we want to see. So I know you've made mention of constitutional reform as a pillar of your manifesto, and one of the areas that you're going to be looking at or hoping to look at in Parliament. Can you shed some light in terms of constitutional reform is a very broad topic,
Yes, it is.
right? Any specific areas that you want to look at?
Uh, Let me start at the beginning because in order for us to be able to do anything at all, the public needs to understand that our constitution is designed for a two-party system.
Mm-hmm.
So the first change we need to enforce is to make room for an independent third force. And that's where we're going to start. Right now, my objective is to ensure that once I lay the foundation for a third force to legally be able to function constitutionally in Parliament, motions, voting, GCOM, then we could continue our work. I remember when the AFC started, they made an attempt at this, but afterwards they ended up joining one of the other two major parties. Um, Accountability is very important, and you made mention of the committees meeting and persons not being able to hold government accountable. I think something we could talk about in accountability is the leader of the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
The leader of the opposition's sole function is to hold government accountable. Unfortunately, right now, the headlines that are being made are about a man unwilling to shake the president's hand or walking out of events instead of giving a speech.
Clearly not the conduct of what we want to see from our parliamentarians and leaders.
So, local government elections are coming up. I'm urging persons to vote for people who stand up for you. Vote for persons who represent your values, your ethics. and what you need as a society. I know there's a traditional system where you grew up probably voting APNU or you grew up voting PPP. But you can understand that there are new persons now, independents, new parties, who are there, and if you research what they stand for, that might be the option for you. There are new options. You would be amazed at how many people don't turn out to vote, Mark. And for the same reason, they would say, man, they always fighting. I didn't really know what they're doing for the people, right? So we're here to stand up and show you that we're independent and we are working for the Guyanese people. So there is an option. It's very important to vote. You brought up that you're participating in a local government
Yes, I am.
election. So could you tell me how your preparations are coming? Are there any reservations, more specifically in relation to the list?
Uh, Not particularly. My participation, as I mentioned, is as an independent.
Mm-hmm.
I will be running for the position of councillor in my area. I have a small team that is working on the ground with me. In the event that we're successful, we hope that whatever is in our manifesto slash plans for the people, and this is being done via surveys we've done, finding out what are the issues affecting the people in the New Amsterdam Sandytown area, especially the young population, because this is our future, and that is where we need to target. So I'm looking at specific issues like education of this young population, uh, job opportunities, ensuring that they have options with regard to having a job if they have the qualifications, and in the event that they don't, to try to facilitate ways and means for them to have some sort of qualification. Um, Drug and alcohol consumption generally is a hot topic in the area, and it's something that needs addressing from a holistic point of view. As a medical professional, I do have some knowledge with regard to how it may affect them, but the community at large needs to play a bigger role in ensuring that our young population stay drug free. The use of recreational drugs, marijuana, um, alcohol, right? If we can limit that, we'll have a more productive workforce, right? So that is where I'm focusing my work. But indeed, the trick that you did mention is that generally the turnout for local government election is poor.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is that I can bring out as many of the voters in the Stanleytown area by appealing to them on a one-on-one basis. So I will be doing a lot of work going around New Amsterdam, trying to meet as many of the persons in their homes, listening to their complaints, trying to raise it. There's only so much that you can do as a counselor, right? But again, you have to start somewhere. And for your voice to be heard, whether it's my voice or someone else's voice at the time whenever the elections are finished, my hope is that whomever wins the area, it doesn't have to be my grouping, right? Whether it's the PPPC's representative, the APNU AFC's representative, or the PNC's representative, they're taking part as a separate organization, or any other independent candidate, whatever information I have, and whatever issues are affecting the constituents of the area where I live, I would want whomever is that councillor to highlight and try to address those issues. At the very least, for it to be raised at the town council's meetings, right? And for whatever suggestions were put forward, and once they're plausible, for them to be worked on or acted on, right? So that even if I lose, right, it's still a win. Because for me, winning is subjective. I'm taking part in election is a win for me. I'm gaining experience, it's a win for me, right? It can only serve me in the long term. And as I've always said on public television, I'm in this for the next 20 years, right? I see a career in politics. I want to do good for my people. I want to make the change. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. So when many persons come and say, "Oh, you're a fly-by-night party and you're a fly-by-night politician," they don't know the groundwork that I have already put in. They don't know the years that I have been studying our political leaders, our history, reading the books that deals with politics, right, and following world politics and not only Caribbean and Guyanese politics. And that is where it starts.
Mark, I'm happy you brought that up because that has also been my personal experience. Persons see you and they believe that you just magically turned into a politician or got where you are. The sleepless nights trying to get her list signed for nomination,
Yeah,
the endless campaigning. Sometimes you go 3 days no sleep, getting out there, and it's all strange people because you're introducing yourself into the political landscape as a new person. Your personal safety at risk as you go into some of these areas. Your family safety, every minute of tears, sweat, and blood literally that goes in, and it's a dedication, it's a commitment, it's not a fly by night. So when you get in and you put yourself as a public figure, it's your entire life
it
that
is.
goes into question. Your behavioral conduct, your language, the things you do, the things you say. All right, and this is something we've been seeing happening a lot in the political landscape. You need to avoid scandals, avoid all these things. But speaking about that, just now when you were talking about the issues you're campaigning on, is there anything in your manifesto for campaigning about domestic violence and spouse murders that are occurring? I've been seeing a lot of it in the news recently, especially suicides in Region 6 areas. Is it something you're addressing?
It is something that we're gathering information for and letting a little secret out. I have on my team a young man who has done a lot of work with domestic violence, training persons, trying to correct behavioral patterns, trying to educate them. I think he was recently nominated to be, if not selected, a Rights of the Child Commissioner, right? So, yes, I have someone with more experience and more knowledge in that area. And once it is an issue, and it is throughout Guyana, that is highlighted, as I said, from my surveys, from my questioning, right? It is something that I plan on not only having this friend of mine to go up and be with me there having conversations and at the small meetings that I plan on having, right? But looking at the bigger picture, right? It's a team that I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
put together, right? So we will be looking at all areas. We will be looking at sports. We will be looking at domestic violence. We will be looking at job creation. We will be looking at health, right? Of course, you can't address everything, and
I
the
understand.
powers of a counselor is limited in regard with regard to how much you can do. But at the very least, highlighting it out there,
Mm-hmm.
right, so that the population can be aware of the issues faced by the constituents in the area where they live, and that is my hope.
Yes, that's very important what you mentioned that sometimes the most you can do is highlight issues. And that also goes as a parliamentarian right now. If I had it my way, I would get in there. Public servants would get better salaries, free education in the university, pensioners are taken care of, the vulnerable in society, persons with disabilities, would be taken care of. But it doesn't work like that. We can highlight the issues, but everybody needs to remember that these motions need to be proposed in Parliament after being agreed upon by the Speaker that yes, you can put this forward and it's politically correct. And then a vote is cast. But I can tell the public that we will try our very best to highlight issues and put forward motions that are most important.
So, a New United Guyana has always been about working together and getting the major parties to work together. And I know this is one of the stumbling blocks that Lennox would have faced during his stint in Parliament, in that for him to receive adequate support to propose anything, you need support from either
Mm-hmm.
of the two sides, right? You need at least one other parliamentarian to second your motion.
Yeah.
If not, it goes down the drain. You can prepare the best legal framework for a law that you want to change or from something that you want to enact. But if you do not have that support, right, it's all for naught. It's all for nothing. So that is why for us, even though we may sound critical of, and we being myself and my political party may sound critical of the government at some times, of the major opposition at other times, right? Our hope has always been to bring these two forces, or at least the best of these two forces together, so that they can work for the betterment of Guyana, right? And as you did mention, they are good persons in both camps. right? They are good persons who are independents out there, who are watching on, who are looking on, who want to take the step, who want to get involved. But if this, and I'm going to use the Guyanese parlance, crab dog mentality continues, then we chase away our future leaders, our young people. No, politics is not for me. You see how dirty it is. You see how they target you. You see how they scandal you, right? I have been in my humble corner with Anu, and I have borne the brunt of attacks from both sides, right? So much so the persons have made it personal, right? I am Mark France. I am an independent person. I am me. Nobody can link me with any political party other than Anu, right? And this is a decision that I would have taken after long thoughts and conversations with most, if not all, of the major parties that are out there. And the one that I gravitated to was a New United Guyana because of what they stood for, right? I know we would have had initial conversations with Lennox, with yourself, about us working together. Hopefully, in the future, it would not be just a join the list, but more a coming together. This is my hope. Of all or most of the smaller, newer parties, and of course, new persons who want to get into politics, I want us to be the example, Asha. I want us to lead for the young people out there who are coming out of high school, who are now getting into business, to see that, you know what? We can still be leaders. We can still have our businesses. We can still work with the government, but be allowed to have our independent voice,
Yes.
right? Um, have you ever faced any criticism with regard to your work and being involved in politics?
Of course I have. I think every politician that is in this country has one point or the other gone through this. When we launched, because I am an Indian young woman, I was called a sub-arm of the PPP. I'm on the vice president's payroll,
Oh wow.
according to persons. I am there to take away votes from APNU for them. I was almost fired. I recently lost one of my jobs last month because I'm a politician.
Okay.
I was let go because my politics would affect business. Um, the safety of my child was called into question. My personal safety during the campaign trail, threatening messages that come in or calls. These things are real. And the things that we face, regardless of what we go through personally, we do this not for personal gain. There's, you know, the salary of a parliamentarian, right? You know, I don't know if you have made money, and I know I have not made money in TNM. We do this for the love of the people, the passion, this drive to see improvement in our country. It's not for the money. And I say this to persons many times. If you're coming in for the money, don't do it. Because the long hours, the amount of work you have to do, it can't pay you.
Most certainly not. And yes, if you're looking to get rich, then politics is not for you, right? Or at least proper politics,
That's,
right?
please clarify.
Proper politics. My personal experience is I want to share my experience that, you know what, you can come from humble beginnings, you can come from a humble background, you can come from going barefoot to school, right, and still be a leader, still be an example out there for people to see, for young persons to see, you know what, oh, Dr. Kissoon did it, Dr. France did it, right, and they've led by example, and it is an example that I want to follow, it is a path that I want to follow, right? This is what I want to see with our youth in Ghana. Given the fact that we have a very young population, right? I want to see more youths being involved. That is why when I saw GCOM mention 62 symbols being submitted for the LGEs, this is a trend in the right direction,
Yes.
right? The mere fact that we have more persons submitting symbols, more persons taking part, more independents, more organizations, including persons who would have had affiliation with some of the major political parties from before, right? It can only augur well for the nation, right? For us to have more leaders, for us to have more persons who are responsible, who are looking after the benefit of the Guyanese population. That is what we want to see.
Yes, very important because local government is coming up. The youth out there, you need to vote for what you want. You need to choose carefully. You don't just vote for a political party because you grew up and mommy and daddy were voting for that party. You don't just vote for a political party because you're scared somebody will criticize you because you didn't vote for a party that you're expected to vote for. You need to look and make sure that whichever organization, individual, or party you're supporting is standing up for what you believe in, the changes that you need to see in Guyana. There are a lot of new persons, and that gives me hope also. We would like to see more young people come forward. It's not easy to be brave sometimes, but if you look at us, we did it, and I'm sure they could do it too.
Yes, there is the example, there is the tried and tested formula of third parties. Yes, we've been shot in the foot, as I mentioned, by some of the third parties. But if you don't start, right, you'll never have the change that you want to see. Okay, so we have to start somewhere. And even if yesterday was the best day to start, then today is the next best day, right? So once you make that start, change will come in time. It may take a while. You may have some pushback. You may face initial difficulties, but I do know that change is going to come. I want to go back to constitutional reform because this is the key of us having what I consider more transparency, more
Yeah.
accountability in governance. It doesn't matter which party is there. I know that in the years 1990 to 2002, some work would have been done on constitutional reform. The former General Secretary of Union United Guyana, Mr. Ralph Ramkran, former Speaker of the House, was one of the key personnel involved in this process, right? And it included going about on meetings, in meetings, meeting the people, making proposals, listening to their suggestions, and trying to find ways and means to better um, govern our people. So when the current government, when they're speaking about constitutional reform, they always go back to those changes that were made in 2002, 2002, somewhere around there, and the creation of the various commissions and how they're supposed to be functioning. But what we've clearly seen is that these commissions don't function as they're supposed to, right? My hope is that in the future they will grow up here, right? And whomever are the persons that make up those constitutions, those commissions rather, right? They're able to act independently of the government or of any political organization. Um,
So you see, Mark, that's something very important. In my opinion, civil society is not allowed to have major decision making power in this country. And it should be done because civil society is independent of government, our opposition, our politics. They're the persons who stand for the organizations they represent, the people on the ground. And not just what I've noticed is that once a government is in power, they touch constitutional reform with a broomstick at length. But when they're out, they want it. And why is that? Because the way the Constitution is right now, it's in their favor. Once you're in government and you have a majority, you basically do whatever you want. Nothing can stop you. There's nothing to hold you accountable. Even if you speak of the issue, it can't legally be changed. And that's something we should be addressing. And I'm done hoping. Now it's time to act. And whatever we can do, we will.
okay. Um, Over the course of the past week, a lot has been said with regard to the oil and gas industry. Yesterday, there was a almost 3 hours of press conference by the vice president, and a lot of questions were raised. Of course, his favorite reporter
Counterpart.
counterpart, Mr. Glenn Lal of Kaichur News, was there asking questions, and this is my view with regard to the work that Mr. Lal has been doing.
Wait. First, you need to answer one thing,
Mhm.
right? Do you understand the question Ganlal posed yesterday?
He didn't pose any question as yet. He asked about 4 questions and then decided that they were follow-ups to something that were asked before, right?
Oh, the last press conference to cater for the next one, right?
Something of that sort. But so Glenlal is the messenger, right? And I've always said that even though we may not see eye to eye with the messenger, the message
Is there.
is what is most important, right? And in my humble opinion, Mr. Lal has been doing a great service to this nation by highlighting issues that exist in our current contracts that we have with the oil majors, and also highlighting similar issues that would have been faced by various countries out there. Yes, so President Ali was at his Lenora conference and said that, oh, you know what, you reporters are only looking at the negatives and not at the positives. You're not looking at the Norway, at the Dubai, right? At these countries that have done well from the petroleum industry, right? He did mention Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a very unique case that I'm very not sure that it would not be one of the prototypes that we would hope to have, but that is his opinion, right? But what is important is that if we can take from the negative experiences of those other countries, my dad always say that a fool learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others, right? And if we can learn from those countries, from the Equatorial Guinea, from the Nigeria, from the Angola, right? These countries that have had issues involving the very same company that is here, right? It can only augur or bode well for us in the future with regard to us negotiating and for us improving the current terms that we have.
Well, Mark, when it comes to our oil and gas industry, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can use these countries as examples. And we have always stood at the position that there needs to be more transparency where our oil and gas industry is concerned, where the funding and the spending of the funds are concerned. Transparency is needed, and it's something that is lacking. Glenn Lau does try to highlight the issues. His methods are questionable,
Mhm.
but yes, deep in there, the message is still there.
It's still there, right? And that is why I said, don't shoot the messenger, listen to the message, right? And my hope is that others who may be better versed in public speaking, who may have more knowledge of the issues faced by the oil and gas industry and how we can better our support system here in Ghana, take the step up, right? And you don't have to work along with Mr. Lau, but you can highlight the issues. Of course, we don't want naysayers trying to shut down our oil and gas industry because this is what the first world is going to when they've already used their oil and gas industry to reach first world status, right? We need to be careful and have that balance there.
And not just that, I believe reporting factually is very paramount, especially where our oil and gas industry is concerned. One of the issues Mr. Lal has been facing is that he can't prove some of the things he's been saying. So for the experts who would be coming forward, and I'm hoping that people take up this mantle and start to highlight some of the issues. The Guyanese people need evidence. Mark, you can't come and tell me the truck in the park on the corner red and I seen it blue.
uh, so as I said, he has his ways, right? And we don't have to agree with everything that is said, everything that is put out there. But he has highlighted a lot of issues with our contract and how we could have improved in terms of the negotiations that were done. And he has put forward some questions that have made our leaders think. And even yesterday's conference, the VP was there saying that we do pay attention to what you say, Glenn, but it's just that we don't do it in the open, right? But the questions, the issues that are raised, right, we try addressing it in our manner.
That's where transparency comes in.
Exactly.
And it needs to be addressed publicly so the people of Ghana can know that you're actually paying attention to what is being said, that you're making changes where they're necessary, and shows that you care. Because if it's done in secret, nobody can support what you're doing.
Exactly. And for me, you need greater civil society and consultation from others, especially those experienced in the oil and gas industry who may not necessarily be a part of the government, right? But for them to give their view.
I think if we're going to mention oil and gas, we need to mention local content. And I know efforts have been met, papers were drafted, some actions were put into motion, but I still hear a lot of complaints from the Guyanese people that they do not believe the Local Content Act is being upheld. Have you heard anything about that, and what's your opinion on it?
Um, well, of the 40 services that are supposed to be provided and guarded by our Local Content Act, I think the majority of those are going to Guyanese company or companies with Guyanese majority owned shareholders, right? But it's just the stepping stone, right? Of course, we do not have expertise in all of the areas. And as such, we may need, as Guyanese companies, as Guyanese individuals, to partner with some of the foreign companies or persons who have experience so that we may finally go up to standard. I know everyone is being certified now, the various ISO standards and stuff, right? But that is the stepping stone. It's the learning curve. We've had oil since 2015 now. We've known about it 7, 8 years, right? So we're still learning. The oil and gas industry is a long-term industry. The unfortunate situation here is that the world is going green,
Mhm.
right? And because of this, we're in a rush to try to make the most of this resource while we can. And this is what is being pushed by the current government. And I can see the reason for such, right? They're trying to get as much as they can from the oil before the world goes totally green, right? But in the haste to get as much as you can, we have to be very careful that we're not robbed of our patrimony, right? That is there for the benefit of all Guyanese. And that is where the issue is. So, for example, we look at the press conference yesterday, we look at the report from the auditing firm that did the auditing of the initial contract. And there were questions with regard to 218 million US dollars. Um, of course, protocol is that the company now will have a chance to answer those queries or questions, provide supporting evidence, documents, whatever is requested, and that sum may come down, right? My position has always been, we've known about oil since 2015, right? We've started receiving revenues 2, 3 years now. Why not? Since we don't have the capacity at our GRA, why not, and this is something that they've finally done, hire a credible independent agency, right, to get those audits done on time to begin with, and for them to be effectively addressed. And of course, get the Guyanese public on board with you. If the Guyanese public is seeing that you're working in their best interest, if the companies that you are hiring are as transparent as they can be, right, and they're answering the questions that are being raised, then the government is working for the people of Guyana. But sometimes when you're dealing with these multinational organizations and these large organizations, it seems that our small governments are almost always sworn to secrecy. And I may even venture to say fealty to these organizations, these large corporations, right? And this is something that I don't agree with, right? This is something that I do believe, and this is my personal opinion, it's not Anuk's, that our uh, the act that was signed on to by Exxon, the other two companies, and the Guyanese government, it allows for renegotiation, right? Clause 31(2) on the miscellaneous provides for such in that
Yes.
very document, right? The mere fact now that we're addressing the insurance issues that was mentioned yesterday, the initial 600 insurance that the Exxon, the Guyana Incorporated company is gonna cover, and in the event that there is any disaster, then you're gonna start taking their assets and then get the parent company. Those things should have been sorted out long before, right? There is no way that these companies are going to do what they're doing in a first world country. They take advantage of lax laws, lax governments, right? And that is what us third world countries are facing, right? And that is
So,
why they've gotten off with so much in Chad, in Nigeria, in Angola. I can go on and list it and say exactly what happened, right? And that is what I want to challenge young people to do. You go out there and do your research. You go out there and read, right? You go out there and try to get knowledge so that no one can come and fool you. And when you ask a question, you can back it up with numbers, right? That is my hope. Like yesterday, I saw the VP again throw out the challenge to Glenn about the 3 to 5 cents for solar energy. Solar energy has come down in terms of storage capacity over the last 10, 15 years. It's the greatest cost cutting measure that the renewable energies have seen, right? And even looking at our and this is what made me laugh, even look at our small solar projects that are being put up, right, some with storage capacity, when you use those figures, right, you still have a cost that is sometimes much less than what is being touted for our gas to shore project, right?
yeah.
And of course, if you're buying in bulk, Say if you're doing large solar farms, if you're buying in bulk, and if you give those companies the same incentives as you have given to the oil majors who are currently running the operations, right? That cost is going to come down even further, right? But this is not something that the VP is going to tell Glenn. He's not going to tell me, you know what, all of these solar panels that are going to be coming are going to be coming in duty free, and you're going to have this grant and that grant, right? Which can bring down the cost of your contract. Instead, he's going to send him to go and get a company that you can't guarantee they're going to get a contract, and that your representative from Mr. Ramsrup was mentioned, is not going to support you in giving you any information. So you're basically tying the man hand and then forcing him to come and apologize to you later, which is not fair, right? If you give a Guyanese and all of the companies that they have arrangements with the same sort of incentives, right? There is a great possibility of you having green energy much cheaper than that which is being touted. But guess what? The future and time, as I said, heals and tells everything. And it's going to be proven, right? That our energy that we're getting, the cost that we're getting, whether or not it's a fair deal, right? And whether or not it's going to improve the lives of Guyanese. One of my friends on Facebook made a post that even if we generate 300 megawatts of power there and have the same distribution issues that we currently have, we won't fix the blackouts that we currently face, right? And this is something that both sides have ran from. I have had some conversations with Mr. Patterson, right? He was the person in charge before. Now we have ministers Indar and Edgel, right? The issues with blackout is something that even though we generated more, it wouldn't be fixed, right? We probably need 600 million US dollars to fix the distribution system, right? And ensure it's running away from the public spaces and stuff. But again, that is probably a work in progress. Hopefully, sometime in the near future, some of our oil resources may go towards that.
I think an important point that you brought up is the skilled manpower that we do not yet have. And for the persons who don't understand, that is why foreigners are brought in to work in our oil and gas industry, because our Guyanese people need to be trained to take up those roles. Well, Mark, we're coming to the end of the show.
Time flies. Time flies when you're
I would give you
speaking.
this opportunity as a running candidate for the local government to just
Make a pitch.
speak to your following. Let's
um,
hear it.
well, I just want to reach out to all voters across the country to begin with. Local government election is very important. It's governance at your level. Your representative that you elect is supposed to address your issues or at the very least highlight your issues. What has happened in the past is that we've seen that the NDCs, that the RDCs, most times they don't function as they're supposed to, as the laws which have been enacted allows them to, right? And there's a great supervision from government that controls most of these organizations, and they have persons who basically just answer to whatever edict is put out there from government. We don't want to see that. We want to see whomever is elected. Doesn't matter if you're APNU AFC, PNC, if you're run by themselves, PPPC, or any independent. We want to see you looking at the issues that are affecting the people, highlighting them, and trying to get them addressed within the possibilities of what the current laws provide. Right? So that is my call out to all Guyanese. Give the newer parties, give the independent candidates a chance to lead. Right? You've already given both sides over 28 years, both sides that chance to lead, and you're still faced with a lot of issues. Some of these issues are chronic; they haven't been addressed. Why not try someone else? Right? And especially for those persons in the Berbice area, we'll be having more conversations. I will be hopefully present on more uh, television shows and on social media so that they will have more information with regard to my candidacy for the constituency we are in from.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Well, everybody, you heard it. Einstein himself said that if you do something over and over and expect a different outcome, it's insanity. So it's time for you to consider seriously, do you want the same thing to continue happening? Are you willing to give new parties a chance? So with that, I will going to say good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in with us. We will see you here next week again. Feel free to reach out to us with any issues or topics that you would like highlighted. We welcome them. And we thank you. Remember that independent opposition is here for you, and we will work for the Guyanese people.
Thank you, Asha.